Imagine having just 48 hours to let go of everything you've held on to for 40 years. That's not a dream. That was reality for Margaret, a 68-year-old woman standing in her dining room, staring at shelves of memories, piles of somedays, and boxes she hadn't opened in decades. In this video, I'll walk you through the exact 7 brutal but surprisingly gentle hacks Margaret used to transform her entire home in just 2 days. These aren't ordinary decluttering tips. These are heart-tested, senior-friendly strategies built for people like you, who may be tired, sentimental, or simply don't know where to start. By the end, you'll not only have a roadmap, but a renewed sense of peace, purpose, and space for the life that still wants to happen. Margaret wasn't messy. She was devoted. Every corner of her house whispered stories. The yellow mug her daughter painted in 3rd grade, the closet filled with coats from winters long gone, the garage stacked with tools from her late husband's DIY days. But when the moving van was scheduled and no one could come help, she looked around and whispered to herself, "Where do I even begin?" That's the question so many of us ask, not just about things, but about life. We don't cling to stuff because we need it. We cling because it once meant something, or because letting go feels like betrayal. But here's what Margaret discovered, and what I'm going to share with you. Decluttering isn't about losing your past. It's about creating space for your future. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed, too tired, or too sentimental to start, take a deep breath. You're not alone, and you're about to learn something that just might change everything. Let's begin right now. Hack 1. Brutal sort method, when maybe is just fear in disguise. There's a quiet truth most of us don't like to admit. The clutter in our homes isn't really about space. It's about decisions we've been avoiding. At 68, Margaret stood in her dining room, surrounded by 45 years of just in case, what if, and I might need this someday. The teacups from when she hosted book clubs, the tablecloths still in their packaging from the 80s, a waffle maker last used when her daughter was in high school. None of it was part of her daily life anymore. And yet, each item whispered something: comfort, guilt, memory, fear. But Margaret was on a timeline. The moving van was coming in 48 hours, so she made a choice. No more debating. She used what we now call the brutal sort method. This hack is simple but powerful. Everything in a room gets sorted into just 3 categories. 1. Absolutely keep the things you use weekly or that truly serve your life today. 2. Maybe, the trickiest category, where most of us get stuck. And 3. Let go. Items unused for over a year, broken, duplicated, or tied to a life chapter that's closed. But here's the twist that made it work for Margaret. She treated maybe as toss. Why? Because maybe is just fear dressed up as practicality. She realized that holding on to these things wasn't keeping her safe. It was keeping her stuck. She started in the kitchen, 19 teacups, and she only drank coffee. 4 full pot sets from her day's catering church dinners, a waffle iron that hadn't worked since 1995. She kept one thing, a chipped yellow mug her daughter painted in 3rd grade. The rest went into donation or trash. It took less than 15 minutes. And you know what she said after? "I didn't need hours to realize I'm not the woman who needs a waffle maker anymore." The clarity surprised her. The dining room was next. 12 tablecloths, some never used. 3 sets of silverware, long past their purpose. She kept 1 tablecloth and 1 everyday set, and in doing so, something lifted. Not just physical space, but emotional weight. The deeper truth is, when we say maybe, what we're really doing is putting off a choice. We tell ourselves it's being careful, but often it's just fear. Fear of waste, of forgetting, of losing who we were. But what if letting go isn't about loss, but permission? Permission to choose the present, to make space for joy now. As Margaret told me, every maybe I kept was a quiet way of saying I didn't trust the life I have now. So if you're staring at that drawer, closet, or cabinet and feel paralyzed, remember this. The best way to honor your life is to live it, not to store it. And don't worry, this is just the first step. Next, I'll show you the one trick that helped Margaret stop burning out after just 10 minutes of sorting. Because even when your heart's ready, your energy might not be. Let's talk about the 8-minute blitz. Hack 2, 8-minute blitz. The power of doing less to get more. You'd be amazed how quickly our energy can vanish. Margaret learned this the hard way. After tackling her kitchen using the brutal sort method, she turned to the hallway closet and hit a wall. Not a wall of stuff, but of exhaustion. That emotional fatigue where every decision feels heavy, even silly ones like, do I really need this extra umbrella? She wasn't physically tired, she was mentally done. And that's when she realized something vital. For many of us, especially as we get older, decluttering isn't a physical task. It's an emotional marathon. So, Margaret created what she called the 8-minute blitz. She'd set a timer, just 8 minutes, Mom, and pick one tiny area, a drawer, a single shelf, even just the top of her dresser. When the timer went off, she stopped. No guilt, no pushing. The magic? She didn't dread decluttering anymore. It became a little challenge, a ritual she looked forward to. One day, she started with her bathroom cabinet. In 8 minutes, she tossed 6 half-used bottles of shampoo, an expired sunscreen from 2004, and a curling iron that hadn't seen daylight in a decade. When the timer buzzed, she smiled, put the bag in the trash, and made herself a cup of tea. What makes this hack so powerful is that it honors our emotional capacity. When you're only working for 8 minutes, there's no pressure to be perfect. No room for overthinking. It's about momentum, not perfection. And when the task is small, success feels easy, which means we're far more likely to come back for another round. Margaret started calling them her victory sprints. Sometimes she did 2 or 3 in a row, sometimes just 1. But the point was, she stopped when her energy dipped, not when the task was done. You don't need a whole day to declutter, she told me once. You just need a tiny win that reminds you you're in control. So if the thought of cleaning your whole house feels impossible, don't. Clean one drawer for 8 minutes. That's it. You might be surprised by how much you can let go. Not just of objects, but of the pressure to get everything right all at once. And next, we'll talk about how Margaret made even tougher choices using a brilliant trick she called the outsider test. Because sometimes the clearest way to see what matters is to pretend it's not yours. Hack 3, outsider test. Seeing through someone else's eyes. Margaret once said, I kept so many things because I thought they defined me. But when I imagined a stranger walking through my home, I saw a version of myself I didn't even recognize. That moment changed everything. She called it the outsider test. And it was her most honest, most humbling strategy. Here's how it works. When you're unsure whether to keep something, picture a stranger sorting through your belongings after you're gone. Would they understand why you kept that item, or would they see it as clutter? She began in her garage looking at a pile of dusty camping gear, tents with missing poles, lanterns that hadn't worked since 1999. Her kids were grown. Her knees weren't what they used to be. And yet, she'd held on to it all. But when she imagined a young woman standing in her garage, wondering why a 68-year-old widow kept 4 broken tents, the answer hit her. She didn't need them anymore. They represented who she used to be, not who she was now. So she donated the gear to a local scout troop and felt freer than she had in years. Next was her closet. 12 winter coats, some she hadn't worn since her teaching days. Margaret lived in a town where snow was rare. A stranger, she thought, would wonder if she was running a coat drive. So she kept 2 she loved and donated the rest to a shelter, imagining someone staying warm on a cold night because of her. This method cuts through guilt and sentiment. It doesn't dishonor your past. It just asks, would someone else see the purpose in this? And if not, maybe it's time to let go. You don't clean the house just to make it look good. You do it so it loves you back. That was Margaret's motto. And the outsider test helped her home love her again by becoming a reflection of who she truly was. Up next, we'll look at how she overcame one of the trickiest excuses we all face, the fear of needing something later. Her answer? A brutally honest equation called the cost of clutter check. Let's walk through it together. Hack 4, cost of clutter check, measuring what it's really worth in 3 minutes. Margaret once stood in her garage staring at a bread maker she had used only once, 12 years ago. I might need it someday, she whispered. But then she asked herself 3 questions that forever changed her view on stuff. Can I replace it? How much would it cost? When did I last use it? That's the cost of clutter check, a small but mighty shift in thinking. Let's walk through it like she did. That bread maker. She hadn't touched it in over a decade. A brand new one would cost under $30. But keeping it meant she had to step over it every time she wanted to grab her vacuum. It cluttered her kitchen, her movement, even her peace of mind. The true cost, she said, wasn't the dollars. It was my space, my energy, and my calm. She moved on to a box of old tools from her DIY days. Screwdrivers she hadn't used since her husband passed. A rusty saw. She asked herself, could she replace them if ever needed? Sure, but more importantly, did she still want to use them? No, these weren't helpful anymore. They were anchors to a chapter already closed. She kept one screwdriver and gifted the rest to a neighbor starting his own handyman business. It felt like passing on purpose. Margaret found this method especially helpful when she reached her kitchen gadgets. A juicer from a health kick that lasted 2 weeks. A bulky slow cooker still in its box. Each item carried a silent promise. You'll use me, one day. But when she asked the hard questions, it was clear. She wasn't keeping them because they were useful. She was keeping them because letting go meant admitting they never really were. The real cost of clutter, she told me, isn't what you paid. It's what you keep paying in stress, in space, in silence. And once she saw it that way, letting go wasn't painful. It was practical, liberating. Next, we'll see how she tackled something even harder, emotional exhaustion from decision after decision. Her answer? A simple, powerful idea she called the energy priority scale, and it changed everything. Let's take a look. Hack 5, energy priority scale. What's worth your heartbeat? One quiet afternoon, Margaret sat down with a cup of chamomile tea and looked around her guest room, which had quietly turned into a just store it for now zone. Boxes of holiday decorations, stacks of old paperwork, photo albums, a pile of throw blankets. Her heart sank. I only have so much energy, she whispered. I can't keep pouring it into things that don't give anything back. That's when she invented what she called the energy priority scale, a simple 1 to 10 rating system for emotional value. A 1 was something she had no attachment to, straight to the donate box. A 10? That was sacred, worth her time, her care, her attention. She began with a stack of old magazines. Once read, never revisited, collecting dust. She gave them a 1. Easy. Gone. Then came her mother's handwritten cookbook, tattered, stained, but filled with notes like, perfect for church brunch, or don't forget to use real butter. That was a 10. Margaret carefully wrapped it in soft cloth and placed it in a special box labeled Family Legacy. The beauty of this method was how it saved her emotional stamina. She didn't argue with herself over every teacup or cardigan. She just asked, how much energy does this deserve? Her closet was a battlefield of this lesson. Dozens of dresses that no longer fit her lifestyle, A few earned a 7 or 8, kept for weddings or moments that mattered, but most a 2 or 3. Donated. She kept her favorite navy blue dress, the one that always made her feel like herself. Here's the truth. You don't clean the house just to make it look good. You do it so it loves you back. And love, real love, is selective. It chooses what lifts us. This energy scale helped Margaret stop wasting time on chipped mugs or tangled cords. Instead, she poured her effort into preserving letters from her children and tuning up her piano, the one she played lullabies on long ago. Feeling lighter and more focused, Margaret moved to the next challenge, deciding what belonged to her future and what was holding her hostage in the past. Let's explore how she did that with the next chapter test. Hack 6. Next chapter test. Serving the life ahead. One morning, as the sun spilled gently across Margaret's kitchen table, she opened a box labeled Teaching Supplies. Inside were lesson plans, bulletin board decorations, and old attendance sheets, reminders of a 30-year career spent shaping young minds. She touched a stickered folder and smiled, but then she paused and asked herself something she hadn't before. Does this belong to the woman I'm becoming, or the one I've already been? That's the power of the next chapter test. It isn't about what this item meant before. It's about what it means now, and whether it earns a place in the story you're still writing. Margaret realized her next chapter was about photography, volunteering at the library, and finally traveling solo, not bulletin boards or laminated flashcards. So she kept just one small folder, a favorite memory, and donated the rest to a new teacher who was just beginning her own journey. This test guided her through the rest of the house. Heavy cookware for big family gatherings? Not needed anymore. She preferred easy dinners and coffee with friends. Camping gear from 20 years ago? That chapter had closed. Her next one had space for lighter luggage. And maybe a passport. The shift was emotional, but deeply freeing. I wasn't losing my past, she told me. I was making room for my future. It's a simple but profound truth. When you honor who you're becoming, you don't need to fear what you're leaving behind. And when she applied this to her partner's belongings, she kept just his favorite fishing hat and let the rest go. She cried, but not from sorrow. From peace, from release, from the sense that she was stepping forward, not clinging to shadows, ready to go one layer deeper. Next, Margaret discovered a way to say goodbye that turned decluttering into something almost sacred, a moment of gratitude. Let's look at how she did it. Hack 7. Gratitude goodbye. Letting go with love. Margaret used to toss old things into black trash bags at night, hoping, if she didn't look too long, the emotions wouldn't catch up. But somehow that made everything harder. She'd second guess, dig items back out, and feel like she was sneaking memories out the door. Then one day, she tried something different. She picked up her husband's old sweater, the navy one he wore every Christmas by the fire. Instead of hiding it in a bag, she held it close and whispered, "Thank you for the warmth. Thank you for every hug." Then she folded it gently and placed it in a donation box headed to a homeless shelter. That tiny ritual transformed her grief into peace. That's the heart of the gratitude goodbye. It's not just about discarding, it's about honoring. She did the same with her children's old toys. Before donating them to a local daycare, she photographed each one and made a small digital album titled Memory Lane. It became a keepsake without needing to keep the clutter. Even chipped dishes got a send-off. "Thank you for every dinner, every conversation," she'd say. "You helped build my home." It wasn't silly. It was sacred. You don't clean the house just to make it look good. You do it so it loves you back. This gentle goodbye turned parting into an act of love, not loss. And it gave Margaret something else: closure. As she moved from item to item, room to room, she realized she wasn't just making space. She was releasing weight, the emotional kind, the kind that makes homes feel heavy, even when they're spotless. So before we wrap up, take a moment. Is there something in your home that deserves a thank you before goodbye? A sweater, a plate, a photo. Say the words. You might be surprised how much lighter your heart feels. And now, let's take everything we've learned and bring it together in one gentle, powerful close. Stay with me. When Margaret closed the door to her home that last morning, the moving van already gone, something inside her had shifted. The rooms weren't just empty, they were open. And she? She wasn't mourning what was lost. She was marveling at what was left. Space, light, breath. Because this journey wasn't just about getting rid of things. It was about getting back to herself. Every sweater folded, every box donated, every tear shed beside a memory. Each one was a small reclaiming, a moment of courage, a step toward a life that fits who she is now, not who she used to be. You don't clean the house just to make it look good. You do it so it loves you back. And when your home feels like it loves you, it lifts you, it doesn't weigh you down. So here's your invitation. Don't wait until a crisis, a move, or a hard goodbye forces your hand. Pick one hack. Just one. Try it this week. Set an 8-minute timer. Do the brutal sort on your nightstand drawer. Say a quiet thank you to that one object that has served its time, and then come back here. Share your story in the comments. Tell us what you let go of or what you found under the clutter that made you smile, because your story might just be the one that gives someone else the courage to begin. If this video moved you or gave you something to think about, give it a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe to join a gentle, powerful movement of seniors reclaiming their space and rewriting their next chapter. Your home isn't just a place to keep things, it's a mirror of your soul. Let's make it shine together.